Sometimes the coolest job in a while is not the highest paying job, not the most creative, fulfilling job, but the one that appeals to the child inside of you. That's what happened to me recently. About a month and a half ago, I moved to Denver, Colorado after living in Chicago for 6 years. Inside of those 6 years of living in Chicago, I worked 2 years for the NFL where I photographed for the Bears. It's probably why a lot of you guys are here. You've seen my sports photography stuff. And so with the move, that just isn't happening. So I'm not going to be shooting games anymore. But I'm a kid from Pittsburgh. I'm not a Bears fan, so it's like shooting the Bears was cool. Being a football fan made it cool. But I always had this thought in the back of my head about how cool it would be if I did work for the Steelers, since I'm originally from Pittsburgh. Little did I know what it would take was me moving further away from Pittsburgh to get that contact with the Steelers. As I've been out in Denver, I've reached out to quite a few different photographers. One of the photographers that I reached out to was a buddy that I've met through the grapevine over the past few years of doing work in the sports world, Austin, and he works for the Nuggets. Figured I do work in the sports world, so does he. Let's grab coffee, hang out. Sure enough, I don't really expect anything out of these. You never know. It's nice to have the network. But like a week after we hung out, he sends me a text and he's like, yo, what are you up to on Sunday? The Steelers need somebody to shoot social media content for them. I've reiterated it over and over and over again. Other photographers are what can help you so much. If you stay in contact with people, if you reach out, put yourself out there. There's always times where you can't do everything. And in this case, he couldn't do the Steelers job or he didn't want to. So he, instead of just saying no, made himself look good by saying, oh, I have somebody else that can do it. Here you go. Here's the contact. So everybody wins. So I went ahead, got connected, ended up hopping on a call with the Steelers and got the job. So now it came down to what am I going to be doing? Am I shooting the game? Am I doing something else? In this case, I wasn't shooting the game. I've shot plenty of NFL games in the past few years, but that is not what their need was in this specific case. I was going to be outside of the stadium, taking photos of fans around the Broncos stadium, and then also doing a little man on the street interview. With that comes real-time delivery, which is where I've done so much work in the past years. It's kind of funny. The amount of times that I have had to deliver right away, pull right off an SD card to my phone, send it to the client, I might have had more jobs that require that than the other way around. So I'm no stranger to this world of fast turn delivery, but I wasn't shooting a game, so I was like, oh, still cool, shooting for the Steelers, and I got to get a paycheck from the Steelers, which is really cool as, once again, a kid from Pittsburgh. The content that I was going to be shooting was from the Steelers Nation Unite page as well as the Steelers page. I was told by them that they have had people do this in the past and they don't post every single week because a lot of the content that they end up getting is just not up to the standard, which is where I looked at it as a way to prove myself. Might not be the perfect job, might not be on the sidelines, might not be actually there photographing the team, but to get involved with the Steelers media team, this was a big opportunity to go above and beyond and deliver what they ask for, of course, but then maybe a little bit more. In my case, I wasn't necessarily going to go and do totally different things, but I looked at it more so they asked for stadium B-roll and fans around the stadium, man on the street interviews, and portraits of fans around the stadium. I will deliver a lot of exactly that, instead of just the minimal things that they asked for. The gear that I used to pull all this off was pretty minimal. I also didn't want to bring a huge camera bag because I knew I'd be walking around the stadium the entire time. Realistically, probably could have gotten away with only shooting on my phone, but the picky creative in me couldn't allow that. I brought my Canon R5 with the 24-70. That's what I was going to use to shoot the B-roll as well as shoot the portraits. I also brought my iPhone 15 Pro, and to get good quality audio, because when I've seen these man on the street interviews before and you just use the phone, you hear the interviewer, but you can barely hear who's in front of the camera and actually supposed to be talking to the camera. So I brought my Rode Wireless Pros with a USB-C attachment so I could wire that audio straight into my phone. So when I sent the file, it had the good audio file baked in, and also obviously had the visuals of the man on the street interview. And then going back with the Canon R5, I used an SD card instead of a CF Express Type B card because I could quickly transfer it to my phone with a dongle. When it comes to speed for something like this, you gotta keep file sizes in mind. So when I was shooting on the Canon R5, I had it both shooting RAW and JPEGs for photos because the JPEGs would be a lot easier to download, and I could download those and upload them as reception was getting progressively worse as more fans were coming towards the stadium. On the video front, I almost always shoot 4K, 24, 120, 60, but in this case, since I was sending quickly through my phone, I shot 1080, 120. Allows us to still get that really slow-mo so they can find little bite sizes, but also the smaller file sizes, because if I decided to shoot 4K 120, I might have been able to upload 2 clips the entire time I was making the videos, which they needed a lot before the game because everything was going to get posted before the game. As I was shooting, I was trying to find different types of people because we wanted Steelers fans, and one of the questions we were asking is how far away they traveled from. So if I just walked up to people and every single one said Denver, I'm not doing my job correctly. I need to find a variety. And so you're trying to find guys, girls, diversity. You're trying to find all different kinds of people so that that video can feel different. We just don't want everybody to have the same answer at the end of the day. So I ended up stumbling across groups of people from Mexico. One of them was the International Fan of the Year for the Steelers. That came about because I was just putting myself out there and I was talking to people. Once you approach 1 or 2 people, it becomes easy because you get your little sales pitch down. Hey, I'm filming with the Steelers social media. Would you mind if I asked you a few questions? Usually the second people hear Steelers social media, you're in. They're gonna do it. But you gotta go up to people, 1, that are approachable, and 2, you have to go up with a smile on your face with a positive attitude because it is a hard thing to just approach somebody out of nowhere. So the series of events once I actually started shooting was I would walk up to them and I would ask them if I could ask a few questions. I would ask the 1 or 2 questions. In this case, there was 2. One was a funny one. It was how many Darnell Washingtons can you stack up on top of one another to get to a mile, since Denver is the mile-high city. Fun fact, the answer was 802. I asked that once and people were so confused, so I ended up finding a conversion where there's 5,260 feet in a mile. He's 6'7", so it ends up allowing people to wrap their head around it a little bit more mathematically and give you a decent answer. Ask them that. Some people gave a good answer. Some people were like, I have no clue. Why are you asking me this? I'm just here to have a fun day. So you kind of blow past it, and then you ask how far they came from. I ended up evolving this question into how many miles or how did you get here, because the hard part was everybody was just giving you a one-word answer. So maybe it was, how far did you travel to be here today? Oh, it came from Mexico, and that was it. But no, I wanted to ask, how long did it take you? How did you get here? So then they elaborate on it, and if we want to just use the one word, it's still there for us to use, but we can also have the option of using a whole answer. Another way that it's kind of over-delivering, doing more than I was requested to do. Once the interview was done, I would take the portrait of those people. Immediately, once they walked away, pop the memory card into my phone, dump it to my phone, start the upload via the Dropbox request link that they sent me, and as it's uploading, I was probably scoping out the next person I was going to ask. And I did that for 2 to 3 hours. In between all of that, I would take some portraits of fans walking around. One of the things that I was really trying to do was find the contrast from Steelers fans in the Broncos environment. Just getting a shot of a Steelers fan doesn't necessarily accomplish what we were trying to do. But you know what does? Incorporating the Broncos blow up behind a Steelers fan walking in, the Broncos stadium in the background with all of the Steelers fans walking in. Having that contrast is exactly what we were looking for in a way that I could get more creative. You got to think, how can I tell a story through a photo? Right there, you got Steelers fans in the Broncos environment. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to see it, and that is how you know you got a good photo. At the end of the day, I would have loved to be on the sidelines of a Steelers game, and maybe eventually I will. But the fact that I got to see pop up on my email, Pittsburgh Steelers paid your invoice. It's like, wow, this is really, really cool. And you know, the pay aside, the work part aside, there are sometimes jobs that just fulfill you more than others. And whenever I got to call my brother, call my mom and tell them like, yo, I'm doing a job for the Steelers, that's really cool versus the jobs that are going to pay me $10,000, $15,000, and I'm just not going to be as happy doing them. You got to find the medium. Obviously, you got to pay the bills. But for me, this was one of the coolest, most fulfilling jobs that I have had, strictly because it's my hometown team. I'm a big football fan, big Steelers fan, and I got paid to do it. Can't ask for much more than that. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you're not already. And who knows, if you subscribe, maybe one of these days I'll post a video shooting on the Steelers sidelines. We can all hope for that. See you in the next video. Peace.